Hello, you're watching Eastern Europe Review, a program where we discuss the situation in Belarus, Ukraine and Russia. This is a joint production of BELSAT TV and TVP World. My name is Mr. Mickiewicz and here are the topics of today's issue. Two artists received 6-year prison sentences for a play that had previously won awards in Russia.
It's 2024 now. The world has changed beyond recognition. We don't know what will happen to us even in a month.
How is a dog helping Lukashenka improve his image? Belarus on the agenda of NATO Washington summit.
Russia is absorbing Belarus, and the democratic world must oppose it.
A Russian court sentenced director Evgenia Berkovich and screenwriter Svetlana Petrichuk to 6 years in prison each for justifying terrorism. The trial was connected to their play, which tells the story of girls who fall in love with ISIS members through correspondence. This marks the first time in Russia that a theatrical production has resulted in such a sentence.
Theater director Evgenia Berkovich and playwright Svetlana Petrichuk are awaiting the verdict in the so-called aquarium of the Second Western Military Court, as much of the trial had taken place behind closed doors. Although initially it was open to the public, journalists only managed to ascertain the length of the prison term that the prosecutor had requested for the theater employees from Evgenia Berkovich's sign language gesture. The case against Berkovich and Petrichuk was initiated because of the play Finished the Bright Falcon. It talks about women who meet radical Islamists on social networks and leave for Syria. The performance used Russian folklore and fairy tale motifs.
Что вы планировали делать в 30-м государстве? Организация, запрещенная в России.
Готовить еду, стирать одежду, быть женой, как повелел Всевышний, моя физиология.
The play is based on real interrogation protocols of recruited Russian women. The script was written by Petrichuk and the play was directed by Berkovich, who explained that she was inspired by the story of Moscow State University student Varvara Karaulova, who wanted to marry an ISIS member.
Вы ехали в Сирию, чтобы стать террористкой?
Я ехала, чтобы выйти замуж.
За кого?
За финиста.
It is interesting to note that in 2022, Berkovich and Petrichuk did not face criminal prosecution for their work, but instead received 2 prestigious Russian theater awards, the Golden Mask, in the categories of Best Screenplay for Petrichuk and Best Costume Design. The performance became popular even in the Russian penitentiary system.
There's no justification for terrorism. This is a brilliant, profoundly human performance, piercing, insightful, telling about the feelings of lonely women who want to love, who are ready to trust, who are looking for light, but find themselves in darkness.
Evgenia Berkovich is raising 2 adopted teenagers and has elderly relatives. According to lawyers, separation from their adoptive mother has severely affected the children's mental health. Additionally, during the investigation, the director's grandmother passed away.
It's 2024 now. The world has changed beyond recognition. We don't know what will happen to us even in a month.
Numerous theater figures and social activists, including Nobel Prize laureate Dmitry Muratov, publicly supported the defendants. Despite the widespread attention, it had no effect. The judge complied with the prosecutor's request, as the women received the full sentence requested by the prosecutor, 6 years in prison. The verdict for the theater employees was announced on a special holiday, the Day of Family, Love and Fidelity.
On the Day of Love and Fidelity, the prosecutor received a bouquet of flowers, and she calmly sent those girls to prison.
The husband of playwright Svetlana Petrichuk published her final statement, which she delivered in court on July the 8th.
This whole year, I felt like a victim of the greatest absurdity that I have ever encountered both in life and in art. It's been 15 months since we've been in the pre-trial detention center, and it's time for the absurdity to end. Let common sense finally prevail.
However, common sense did not prevail. Evgenia Berkovich's mother, Elena Efros, similarly described the process as absurd. She hinted that the case against Petrychuk and Berkovich might have been orchestrated by someone very influential. Interestingly, it wasn't the performance itself that could have upset the authorities, but rather Evgenia Berkovich's anti-war poetry.
He flies on the presidential business jet, attends official delegations, and dines in the company of the country's top officials. Additionally, as revealed by the Belarusian cyber partisans, the security service of Belarusian dictator Alexander Lukashenka takes care of his comfort. We are referring to Alexander Lukashenka's dog, Umka. More details in our next story.
Skiing, hockey matches, official dinners, and foreign business trips. Belarusian dictator Alexander Lukashenka is always accompanied by Umka, a Pomeranian Spitz. The dog's needs are attended by employees of the service organization DIP Service, which provides support for Lukashenka's events. The Belarusian cyber partisans have obtained recordings of telephone conversations between Nikolai Shkred, the first deputy head of the Belarus President Property Management Directorate, and Maxim Yudin, the vice head of DIP Service. In these conversations, the executives are discussing tasks that are beyond their remit.
We need to buy a basket for OSCE. A plastic one for transporting animals similar to the one you bought either last year or 2 years back. Is it for the white one? Yes, exactly, for that one.
The white one refers to Umka, the Pomeranian Spitz. It turns out that Umka needed a basket for OSCE, which is one of Lukashenka's residences. Meanwhile, a meeting with Putin was taking place. French actor Gérard Depardieu was seen mowing grass, and American actor Steven Seagal was spotted munching on a carrot. Nikolai Shkred had served in Lukashenka's security service for 19 years and currently holds the position of first deputy head of the Belarus President Property Management Directorate. In contrast, Maxim Yudin had previously worked in the Directorate of Military Counterintelligence of the KGB before transferring to DIP Service.
The role of former security forces leaders is to ensure that nothing, no secrets, get outside of this structure.
Umka made its first public appearance in the spring of 2020. Since then, the dog has been present at official events, business trips, and even cowshed inspections. Umka has also accompanied Lukashenka on foreign business trips to Zimbabwe, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and unofficially to Moscow for the victory parade on May the 9th.
Lukashenka doesn't take his dog to those countries whose leaders he fears or respects. For example, China or Russia. If you look closely, Umka is not part of the delegation to these countries.
The journalist and owner of a similar dog, Ales Karnienka, has insights into the relationship with a white Spitz. He recalls that Lukashenka used to affectionately refer to both his son Nikolai and Umka as baby.
Lukashenka's son, Kolya, was the kind of toy that was shown to people for many years. He was traveling with Lukashenka, which broke diplomatic protocols. I think that even Kolya, in his early years, understood that he was out of place there. Everyone came without children, and for some reason he was there with his father. Well, now Lukashenka has a Pomeranian Spitz.
The more Umka appears in public, the more doubts arise whether it is still the same Pomeranian Spitz. When comparing the early photos and the recent ones, it seems that it might not be the same dog. Umka has gained weight, the quality of her fur has changed, and the shape of her muzzle is different. These changes have have led to rumors that Umka might have been replaced by a double.
There was a rumor in the summer of 2021 that Spitz was bitten by another dog during a visit to border guards. Indeed, after this rumor, Umka didn't appear in public for several months.
Like other autocrats, Lukashenka may find solace in his loyal companion Umka as he navigates the complexities of leadership and power. While people's affection for him remains in question, Umka's steadfast companionship offers a unique sense of trust and connection for the Belarusian leader.
In the final declaration of the NATO Public Forum in Washington, Belarus is mentioned only in the context of its relations with Russia. However, at the invitation of Jens Stoltenberg, Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, the democratic leader of Belarus, participated in the event. During the meetings held at the forum, as well as on American television, the Belarusian democratic leader advocated for a better future for Belarus, envisioning the country as a reliable and viable partner.
Svetlana Tikhanovskaya raised the issue of Belarus at the NATO Public Forum. The Belarusian president-elect was invited to Washington by the Secretary General of the alliance, Jens Stoltenberg. Upon her arrival in Washington, she appeared on MSNBC's morning show Morning Joe. Svetlana Tikhanovskaya was joined by Nancy Pelosi, Speaker Emerita, and a senior member of the U.S. House of Representatives.
Tell us, here at the NATO summit, what is your overall message?
What we are waiting from NATO countries now as people who are fighting against dictatorship, against atrocities in our country, against imperial ambitions of Russia, we need unity and decisiveness.
At the events and meetings of the NATO Public Forum from July the 9th till the 11th, Svetlana Tikhanovskaya explained the role of Belarus in regional security. Among other topics, she focused on the hybrid attacks by the Lukashenka regime against Poland, Lithuania and Latvia, as well as the deployment of nuclear weapons in Belarus.
We'd like to remind everyone here that Russia is absorbing Belarus, and the democratic world must oppose it. Yes, the issue of changes in Belarus should be dealt with by Belarusians themselves, but without international support, it'll be very difficult for us to do it. The NATO Forum is also an opportunity to remind people that supporting Belarusians is of great importance, supporting independent media, repressed people, and civil society.
It goes without saying that the regime in Minsk, represented by Lukashenka, was not present at the NATO Forum, but it is mentioned in the final declaration of the forum.
Belarus continues to enable this war by making available its territory and infrastructure. Russia's deepening political and military integration of Belarus, including the deployment of advanced Russian military capabilities and personnel, has negative implications for regional stability and the defense of the alliance.
The declaration also condemns the announced stationing of nuclear weapons in Belarus. Thus, Belarus is mentioned in the declaration only in the context of its relations with Russia. Svetlana Tikhanovskaya's rhetoric emphasizes that Belarus, if democratic, can be a reliable, peaceful and viable partner. This is especially important for neighboring countries. During the NATO Forum, the Belarusian president-elect met with the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Poland, Radoslaw Sikorski, whom she thanked for supporting Free Belarus.
For us Belarusians, this is a platform to express our voice, so that Belarus is perceived not only as a threat, but also as a subject and a partner. It's interesting that our participation in the summit has coincided with the 30th anniversary of Lukashenka's rule. That's how long Stalin ruled, and Lukashenka is often compared to Stalin here. However, no one here wants to deal with Lukashenka or see him as a partner, but show that Belarusians are supported.
Shortly after the NATO summit, the 38 member countries of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, OSCE, again invoked the Vienna mechanism in relation to Belarus. Despite its membership in the OSCE, Belarus does not comply with the organization's recommendations. Through this mechanism, OSCE countries will demand answers from the regime regarding political prisoners and repression in the country.
That's all for today. Eastern Europe Review will be back next Sunday. Please stay with TVP World and stand with Ukraine.